Oh my goodness, you do not want fear to mess up with your confidence. Hello and welcome. So today's video is about reviewing chapters 13 to 18 of the 10x Rule written by Grant Cardone. Go all in and commit. Commitment is staying until you see results. A typical example that is relatable. In relationships with the opposite sex, like you're in a relationship with this guy, you come up with this idea of, I am just going to do 50-50. Me, I'm not giving everything, no. If I give everything, my heart will be broken. I will look like a fool and all of that. Then that is not going all in, and that is not commitment. The measure with which you give is the same measure that comes back to you. So when you give 100% into your work, into your responsibilities, trust me, you're going to reap 100% result. If you give 50, you will reap 50, okay? But I'm sure we want to reap 100, so we will give 100. Let me also give another example with sales. You have this amazing product and you want to sell it, but then you tell yourself, okay, I have a goal of talking to 100 people and ensure that at least 1 out of the 100 buys my product. You start with prospect 1, the response is not good, and then you quit. That is not going all in, and that is not commitment. The reason why we really do not fully go all in, we need to understand this, is because we are afraid of failure. Hey, failure should be a propellant. The society has taught us to play it safe. Just play it safe. You don't want to lay all your cards on the table. What if you lose? No. Playing it safe only leads to living a life of regret, because you never know what could have come out of you exerting more effort and going all out. I love a quote in that chapter which says, there is no failure unless you quit. Alright? Now chapter 14 is expand, never contract. And what he is trying to explain in this chapter is, when you're faced with an economic recession like we are in right now, most people will want to cut back. Most people will rather save and pull out than expand. You know, this chapter is very timely to what we are experiencing now. We're experiencing an economic recession, and this chapter is targeted to our mindset, the mindset of, oh, things are not going too well now, so let us just shrink back and refuse to expand. He is of the thought that even in this recession, this is when we are supposed to expand and not contract. You know, the contraction thinking is proposing that we expand. We do thoughtful expansion, and by that he means try and look at the industries that have the potential of expanding much later in the future and cash in. Let me give an example. If you look at the stock market now, the prices of certain shares have dropped. This is where expansion comes into play. As an organization, as an individual, as a company, you may want to cash in. Buy shares now that the prices are low, because things will eventually get better. And when they do, the prices of the stocks will go up and you will make a good profit. Getting in touch with clients, seeking out opportunities, and advancing in your market. And he proposes not following the crowd but leading the crowd. The chapter 15 talks about burning the place down, and I don't mean lighting up a fire and burning your organization down or yourself down or anything of that sort. Grant is trying to say that when you experience success, it is not the time to slow down. In fact, it is the time where you are even fired up to keep up your efforts. It is very tempting to slow down when we have achieved some level of success. We come to this place mentally where we think that we have arrived. But if you want to have consistent success, you have to keep doing pretty You have to keep doing what you did to achieve success in the first place, and that is putting in more effort, putting in more work, discipline, structure, working hard, and working smart as well. It's wisdom not to rest on your laurels. He believes that once you are in motion, you are in constant momentum. Like there will never be a day where you completely run out of fire and become complacent. He feels that we can never take too much action or accumulate too much result, and he makes references to big players who do not rest on their laurels. Those big players are companies like Coca-Cola, Starbucks, and McDonald's. He also doesn't feel like over exposure is a problem. He said obscurity is, and there's a lot of sense in that. Obscurity is when nobody knows you. You do not want to be in that place, especially when you have an amazing product and service to offer and nobody knows about you. Then overexposure isn't the problem. Obscurity is when no one knows you. If you are not known, how can you be considered? I'd like you to think about that statement. Now, chapter 16, my favorite of all. Fear is the great indicator. When we start businesses or we're about to venture or we want to make that call, we get scared and we're like, no, I don't want to do it. We're afraid of embarrassment. We don't want to be tagged. We don't want to be seen as incapable. We all know this common saying that fear is an emotion. And most of the time, what it is that we are afraid of doesn't exist. I understand the place of fear because it helps to protect us against danger. That's when you can clearly see the danger, like there is fire somewhere and you're afraid of going close because you might get burned. But when you don't see that which you are afraid of, why are you afraid? He talks about the fact that when we are experiencing fear, we need to understand that you are doing something great that is taking you in the right direction. We need to understand that the more time we give to fear, more fear expands. And he proposes something very important, that the minute you're about to do something and you're afraid, do it immediately. Don't wait, because the more you wait, the more time you give to the fear, the incapable you become. Grant talks about eating out our fears. How do you eat your fears? You face them. When I wrote my ebook, it occurred to me that I hadn't sent a free copy to my bosses, and I was scared. I was like, what are they going to think when they get the book? And something said, Grace, remember what Grant said about time and eating your fears. So I immediately shut down that voice in my head and I sent the email anyway, and the response I got was amazing. And I asked myself, so Grace, what were you afraid of? When you face your fear, guess what happens? You grow in your ability to fight this fear. Now, there is something about fear that Grant points out that is so relatable. When we don't face our fears, guess what happens? We lose courage, we lose confidence, we lose energy. Oh my goodness, you do not want fear to mess up with your confidence. In chapter 17, he talks about the myth of time management. I mean, everybody has their own opinion and take about how you should manage time, right? And for Grant, he just feels like, how do you manage time when you don't even pay attention to how you are using your time? In order to manage time, you have to pay attention to what you are using your time for. And he encourages journaling. Like when you wake up in the morning, journal everything that you do throughout the day. And at the end of the day, go through that journal. It amazes you the things that we do that is a waste of our time, that even is an indication that we are mismanaging our time. We need to spend our time doing valuable things that will bring us that success or that will bring us that increase that we seek. When I talk about doing valuable things, reading is valuable. Taking online courses is valuable. And people make so much fuss about time management, but then it's about ensuring that you're spending your time doing valuable things that give you the results that you seek and desire. Time is money. We need to truly be conscious of how we spend our time. Finally, to chapter 18, which is criticism, a sign of success. Grant is making us understand that it is a good thing when people criticize you, because it is indeed a sign of success. It's amazing how I have come to realize and understand that it's the people who are not doing anything that criticize you the most. The thing with criticism is we allow it get to us, and we're not supposed to allow it to get to us. And he backs it up with when he was a sales rep in a company and he was going the extra mile. He was working so hard and people were criticizing him, criticizing his approach, and in the long run he ended up being among the 1% most successful salesperson. Second was when he wrote his first book titled If You Are Not First Then You Are Last. And in the book, those that read it criticized him for being arrogant and proud. But guess what? It didn't bother him because the book ended up being #1 New York's bestseller. In order for you to 10x your results and your successes, you have to see criticism as a sign of success and just keep going for what you want. I hope the 6 chapters that I have reviewed made sense. And if you want to read the entire book, please, by all means, do. I will see you in my next video. Peace and angels.